Well, the White House scaling back on televised press briefings, and not everyone is too happy about this.
Yeah, our next guest putting out this statement from the White House Correspondents Association, Jeff Mason, saying, quote, "We are not satisfied with the current state of play, and we will work hard to change it."
But the question is, do the American people really care about how many on-camera press briefings are held?
So the president of the White House Correspondents Association, President Jeff Mason, joins us now. Jeff, nice to see you this morning.
Nice to see you.
So on Thursday, you met with Sean Spicer and Sarah Huckabee Sanders and offered up some concerns about the way that these press briefings are going lately, where they're asking television stations to point their cameras at the wall off camera. What did you tell them?
Well, I told them that we are eager to have regular televised briefings back. It's important not only for our members, which include people from television and radio who really need those visuals to be able to tell their stories and have their stories air, but it's also in the interest of transparency and in the interest of a democracy and in the values that we believe are covered by the First Amendment. So we had a really good conversation about that, and I'm hopeful that in the coming weeks that we'll be able to make progress.
Jeff, if the goal is information, why does it matter whether it's televised or audio? You know, reporters make names for themselves by grandstanding in these briefings. If you're still getting the information, why does it matter whether the camera's pointed forward?
Well, I think that's a good question, and I think that's an issue that the White House has also raised. Look, we have reporters, as you know, in the White House press corps who work for print organizations like I do, but we also have reporters who work for broadcasters and cable outlets. And in addition to getting that information, factual information and news that they can report from their own mouths or in their own stories, they like to be able to show it on TV.
But Jeff, we play audio all the time.
Right, and one of the problems has been that some of these briefings, they haven't allowed audio at all. So that's one of the issues that we also raised.
We also read full screens of quotes from the press corps as well. So, I mean, if people are getting the information, I don't fully understand why the President and the White House doesn't have the prerogative to push back.
Well, I'm sure that some other people who work for Fox would disagree with that, because I can tell you that I'm representing your network as well as many others when I speak to Sean and Sarah and saying that we would like to be able to have the possibility to have those briefings be on camera. And I also think, in addition to meeting the needs of broadcasters and the needs of the journalists and the press corps, it is in the interest of the American public to be able to see that back and forth between journalists and the administration that we are covering.
Right.
That is a visual opportunity for people to see democracy in action.
You know, I think we can all agree on that. There is such an important relationship between the media and the press. Do you think, though, any changes need to be made to these press briefings? Because a lot of people, we talk to the American people all the time, say this has become more of a reality show than really informing us about things that we want to know about. And you've been watching these press briefings. In your honest opinion, do you think any changes need to be made?
Well, it's in my interest to represent the interest of my members and the members of the Correspondents Association. I think if there's some criticism of the briefing, just like healthy criticism of anything that journalists or politicians do, that there's nothing wrong with that, and I think people are open to that. But the principle, let me just finish my thought, the principle that we are fighting for here is transparency, and that's why we're requesting and arguing and advocating for those briefings to be open.
You represent the interests of the correspondents. The White House has its own message it wants to get out. Who in that room then is representing the American people?
Well, you know, we represent the American people insofar as we're doing our constitutionally protected jobs of journalism. The White House, of course, and the President were elected by the American people. So I'm not in a tug of war about who's representing whom. But what we are advocating for is the Constitution and the protections that are provided by that. Now, you ask, you know, does the White House have a right to figure out its own messaging strategy? Of course. And they're doing that. And I think that's one of the calculations that they're making with these briefings. But as I said, and I've said a couple times, it's in our interest to push for that transparency to be present and for the briefings to be as open as possible.
Well, Jeff Mason, thanks for joining us. Ultimately, the American people will have the last vote as to who's protecting their interests, and we thank you for coming on and bringing your side.
Jeff Mason,
my pleasure.
thank you.
Thank you.